Mr. Speaker, I rise today to share the amazing story of Rick Corman, the hard-working, hard-charging founder of R.J. Corman Railroad Group in Nicholasville, Kentucky, in my district. Rick's life story is an example of the American dream, and his tireless spirit, grit, and determination and generosity benefited not only the employees of R.J. Corman, but an entire community. Unfortunately, America's broken tax code, the ability of entrepreneurs like Rick, are compromised, and the estate tax in particular threatens the future ability of the R.J. Corman Company to continue to drive economic growth, employment, and charitable giving in Kentucky. This story is timely. As Congress takes on the task of reforming our broken tax code over the next few weeks, critics will undoubtedly protest that this plan is a tax cut for the rich, and they will cite our changes to the estate tax as an example. But as the story of Rick Corman reveals, the estate tax is not a tax on the wealthy, as much as it is an unfair penalty on hard work, jobs, charity, upward mobility, and the American dream. In 1973, after growing up in a low-income 5-room house with no interior bathroom, Rick Corman started his company immediately following high school graduation with nothing more than a dump truck, a backhoe, and a tenacious spirit. Driven by his remarkable operator skills and then by his commitment to safe and reliable service, Rick was able to become a trusted provider in the railroad industry. But his success would not have been possible without the assistance early in his career from Luther Deaton, a community banker for what is now called Central Bank in Kentucky. As Rick grew his company, he faced debts and cash flow problems. He struggled to get a loan. As Luther said, he had a good company, he just faced a cash crunch. But Rick invited Luther to the site of a coal train derailment inside a tunnel in the middle of the night to show his work. And Rick, recalling the episode, laughed because he had gotten his banker filthy and covered in coal dust. But after that experience and seeing how hard Rick worked, Luther knew that this man would not fail. And so Rick was then able to secure character-based loans that allowed his company to thrive because his community banker was willing to take a risk on him based on what he knew about his business and Rick's drive to succeed. Today, this type of loan would never be allowed under the overly restricted Dodd-Frank law, but those loans proved to be essential for the growth of Rick's company and ultimately highly profitable for the bank. Without access to capital, today's entrepreneurs are prohibited from doing what Rick Corman did. Over 40 years, he grew his company into what is today known as R.J. Corman Railroad Group, continuously investing profits in his company back into his business, into his workers, and into the surrounding community. Today, R.J. Corman has field offices in 23 states. The company serves all 7 Class I railroads, many regional and short-line railroads, as well as various rail-served industries. And Rick grew the company into what it is today by treating all of his workers well, working alongside them, never asking them to do a job that Rick himself was unable and incapable of doing himself. The company's diversity and investment in people gave it the ability to service all aspects of the freight railroad industry at any scale. The company has been critical to restoring service when Class I railroads are devastated by flooding or storms like Hurricane Katrina or Harvey or Irma. But now the future success of this company is threatened by the estate tax, also known as the death tax. In 2013, Rick Corman passed away after a heroic 12-year battle with cancer. It resulted in the transfer of his life's work to a living trust. More than anything, Rick had an intense appreciation for the hard work and loyalty of his employees who had been and continue to be an integral part of the company's success. And he wanted to ensure that he protected their jobs into the future. Since Rick's passing, the trust has continued to reinvest cash into the company as he intended. And the company continues to operate and help those that have benefited from it. The company has invested nearly $110 million in capital assets, and employment has grown by 53%, nearly 450 jobs. The company has donated more than $2.5 million to charitable causes since Rick's passing. But due to the estate tax, the company has yet to feel the full impact of the tax, but starting in 2019, nearly 30% of its annual cash flow will be pulled from the company as a result. And this will significantly impact R.J. Corman's ability to create jobs, purchase equipment, and donate to charity. And the leadership of the company now tells me that the government will actually lose revenue because the company will not be able to grow and create jobs that would produce more revenue than the estate tax will produce. This is an example of why it's so important we end this unfair tax. The death tax destroys intergenerational small businesses and family farms throughout the nation, owned by people who started with literally nothing and worked their entire life to build a successful company and jobs. So as we look at the estate tax and tax reform in the coming weeks, I hope my colleagues will remember the story of Rick Corman. These families and these businesses should not have to fear triple taxation from Washington just because someone passes away. Our bill immediately delivers relief from this tax, and I hope that we will pass a repeal of the estate tax to honor entrepreneurs, job creators, and philanthropists like Rick Corman. I yield back.